In the story of nearly every American family, there is a grandmother. She lived up in the hills, the story goes, with long dark hair and high cheekbones. And she was Cherokee, a princess in some tellings. It is one of the most repeated origin stories in the country, passed down at kitchen tables from Georgia to California, treated less like a rumor than like a fact carried in the blood. And over the last 20 years, millions of those families finally decided to check. They mailed a tube of saliva to a lab and waited for the machine to confirm what everyone had always known. Again and again, it came back with the same quiet answer. She isn't there. But the grandmother nobody can find is the doorway into a far older mystery. One that has almost nothing to do with a number on a screen and everything to do with a single word, stranded 1,000 miles from home. Start with the scale, because the scale is the first clue. When the census asked, more than 800,000 Americans said they had Cherokee ancestry. That is more people than the entire enrolled membership of the 3 Cherokee tribes combined, with hundreds of thousands to spare. By a wide margin, it is the most claimed native ancestry in the country. Historians note that an astonishing number of Southerners are certain they had a Cherokee grandmother, often a princess. The trouble is, the Cherokee never had princesses, and when the saliva tubes came back, the grandmother rarely came back with them. Here is what a test can and cannot do. Think of your genome as a library built from every ancestor you ever had, the oldest books slowly falling apart on the shelves. It can spot a volume traced to the first peoples of the Americas, but it cannot read the spine and name the nation they belong to. There is no Cherokee marker. So the failed search does not prove the grandmother was invented. It only means the real anomaly was never going to surface in a cheek swab. It was hiding in the language itself. Every language is a kind of fossil. It carries in its bones the shape of where it came from and who it once lived beside. And by that measure, the Cherokee language should not exist where it is spoken. Cherokee belongs to a family called Iroquoian. Its cousins are the languages of the old Iroquois world: Mohawk, Seneca, Cayuga, Oneida, Onondaga. Tongues that grew up together in the cold lake country of the Northeast, around the shores of the Great Lakes. That is the whole family, clustered in the north within sight of each other. All of them, except one. Cherokee sits alone in the southern Appalachians, in the misted ridgelines of Tennessee and North Carolina and Georgia, roughly 1,000 miles from its nearest living relative. Picture a single oak in a desert, when every other tree of its kind grows in one distant forest 1,000 miles away. That lone oak is a question. How did it get here? The mainstream answer is the simplest one. The Cherokee are the tree that walked. Long ago, a group of Iroquoian speakers left the northern lake country and moved south along the spine of the mountains, carrying their language like seed. Linguists can even estimate when. Because languages drift apart at a slow, measurable rate, a kind of carbon dating for words. You can count the differences between Cherokee and its northern cousins and read the clock back to a split around 3,000 years ago. The Cherokee remembered it too. In the 19th century, the ethnographer James Mooney recorded their old tradition of coming south from a country of Great Lakes. The language, the clock, and the memory all point the same way. But an honest film slows down here because the case is not closed. The map says migration. The dirt is less sure. When archaeologists dig the river valleys, they find long, unbroken habitation. One culture growing gradually into the next, with none of the jolt you would expect if a new people had pushed the old ones out. So some scholars argue the language may have spread south without a mass of bodies carrying it. The way English now blankets places no Englishman ever settled. We do not know whether the Cherokee walked south or the words traveled and the people stayed. Anyone who says it is settled is selling certainty the evidence hasn't earned, which is the gap where the strange theories grow. For 2 centuries, that lone oak has tempted people to explain it with visitors from across the ocean. In the 19th century, white America looked at the great earthen mounds of the South, refused to believe native peoples had built them, and invented a vanished race of old world mound builders. One favorite candidate was a lost tribe of Israel. And in 1889, in a burial mound in eastern Tennessee, a Smithsonian dig pulled out a small engraved stone that seemed to prove it. The marks were first read as Cherokee, then, decades later, as ancient Hebrew. Proof, one scholar said, that Hebrew sailors had reached America long before Columbus. It was electric. It was also wrong. The Cherokee writing system wasn't invented until the 1820s by a silversmith named Sequoyah, so an ancient inscription was impossible from the start. And in 2004, 2 archaeologists matched the stone's letters to an illustration in a Masonic book from 1870. Someone had copied it out and buried it. The Bat Creek stone was a forgery. Then came the version in a lab coat. For years, the fringe's best card was a strand of DNA called haplogroup X, found in a small slice of Native Americans and also in Europe and the Near East. 2 peoples, an ocean apart, sharing a signature. It looked like a bridge. But the native version is its own ancient branch, sealed off for ages, and it reached America by the same road as everyone else. A slow arrival from the west, not a shortcut across the Atlantic. Because that is what the ancient DNA actually reveals, and it is bigger than in any one tribe. Every indigenous nation of the Americas, Cherokee included, traces back overwhelmingly to a single founding people who crossed from Asia during the last ice age, over a lost land bridge where the Bering Strait now sits. When so much water was locked in glaciers, you could walk from Siberia to Alaska. In Montana, archaeologists recovered a child buried roughly 12,600 years ago whose genome matched native peoples across both continents. One family fanning out to fill 2 hemispheres. So a Cherokee person's DNA shows that founding signature, shared from the Arctic to Patagonia. There is no separate Cherokee code, because over thousands of years, peoples married across town and nation and blended. The blood is shared. What truly sets the Cherokee apart was never the blood. It was the word. And here the story quietly turns around and looks back at the person watching. Because the genetics do not rewrite who the Cherokee are. The Cherokee know exactly who they are. What the genetics rewrite is who thinks they're Cherokee. Remember that gap. 800,000 Americans claiming the Ancestry against a fraction of that number actually enrolled. That gap is not a Cherokee mystery. It is an American one. The grandmother myth, historians point out, bloomed most in the families whose ancestors had settled native land, and it let them feel rooted here without giving anything back. A safe way to be a little bit indigenous while staying comfortably who they already were. As one native scholar put it, it is a privilege of the dominant culture to define everyone else's identity, to reach for a distant grandmother while never being claimed in return. So let the ridgelines fade and stand where identity was actually made. Imagine a town in the river bottoms of the southern Appalachians 3 centuries ago, before the removals. Blue wood smoke over the rooftops, fields of corn, beans, and squash, climbing the same stalks together, the 3 sisters feeding the whole town. At the center stands a council house with 7 sides, and those sides are not decoration. They are the architecture of belonging. The Cherokee are built from 7 clans: wolf, deer, bird, paint, blue, long hair, and wild potato. And every person in that town belongs to one. Here is the part that would baffle a modern DNA lab. You belong to your mother's clan, always. And the line runs through the women. A woman owns the house and the fields. And her brothers, not her husband, help raise her children into the clan. Nobody there would have understood the question, how much Cherokee are you? Because you were not a percentage. You were your mother's clan, your town, and your relations. Identity was not measured, it was held. What broke that was not genetics. It was paperwork. Colonization arrived carrying a European obsession the Cherokee never had. That a person could be counted in fractions of blood, a half, a quarter, a distant 16th. And near the turn of the 20th century, the United States turned that idea into a ledger. To dissolve tribal land into private plots, federal agents wrote the Cherokee onto a master list, the Dawes rolls, household by household. It was meant to end the nation. But those same rolls became the record the nation would later build its citizenship upon. Which brings us, finally, to a citizen of the Cherokee Nation today, in the red dirt country of northeastern Oklahoma, where the Trail of Tears ended. Ask that citizen what makes them Cherokee, and the answer has nothing to do with a saliva tube. To be a citizen, you trace an unbroken line back to an ancestor written on those Dawes rolls. The nation says it plainly. A DNA result is not proof, and it cannot enroll you. And there is hard-earned wariness behind that rule. This is a people who watch blood measurement used, again and again, to shrink them out of existence, and who have seen their identity worn as a costume by strangers. So when a sitting United States senator released a DNA test claiming a native ancestor generations back, the nation's response was not celebration. It was 2 words: inappropriate and wrong. Because belonging, Cherokee scholars keep patiently explaining, was never something you could claim from the outside by finding an old relative in your code. It is kinship. It is being raised in the community, answering to it, and being claimed by it in return. A relationship, not a result. The grandmother, in the end, was the wrong question all along. The real ancestry of the Cherokee is written in a language that walked out of the northern lakes and into the southern mountains, in a founding people who crossed a vanished bridge at the edge of the world, and in 7 clans that measured a person by their mother and their relations, and never by a fraction. The machines were looking for the wrong thing, because whatever the Cherokee are, and they are still here, still speaking, still enrolling their children, it was never a percentage on a screen.